Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. How are we doing this morning? My name is Daniel Dotse. I'm the founder and chief executive of an organization called Lead for Ghana. Lead for Ghana is a leadership development organization based in Ghana. We are trying to develop leaders to expand educational opportunities to all children in the country. I'm very excited to be moderating this Pitch It session, which is a session bringing together 6 founders, as well as teachers and thinkers that are tackling some of the biggest challenges in education today. To give you a little background on how this pitch is going to work, we have these 6 speakers that are going to present their ideas to us, and the jurors as well. They have 5 minutes each to present their ideas. The jurors are going to give them feedback and advice after they've presented. And after every speaker has presented, the jurors will tell us who is the winning speaker. It's that simple. Let me introduce today's jurors to us. Today we have Jordan Shapiro. Jordan is an author, educator, and a journalist. We have Louka Parry. Louka is the founder and CEO of the Learning Future, an organization that supports schools, systems, and companies to thrive in tomorrow's world. We have Emiliana Vegas, senior fellow and co-director of the Center for Universal Education at the Brookings Institute. And excitingly, we have a student today, who is Chukwuma Aroh. Chukwuma is a student at the Federal University of Technology in Owerri in Nigeria. So let's get started. Our first innovator for today is KIKI James. KIKI is the founder and CEO of ACE Charity, an NGO focused on improving literacy in Africa. Please join me in welcoming her on stage.
Good morning, everyone. My name is KIKI James. I have a disclaimer. Shapiro stole my presentation, just so you know. My name is KIKI James, and I come from Nigeria. Before I go any further, I'd like to play a video.
A-N B-Y B-E Eyes, mice, dice, nice, rice, rice, slice, tree, twice, home sweet home. What is home for a bear? A cave is home for a bear. What is home for a beaver? A lodge is home for a beaver.
So, I live in Nigeria. My accent doesn't sound like I do because I was raised in the UK. I moved back to Nigeria 9 years ago because I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to be at the very heart of the matter. I wanted to see the difference and make an innovative difference, sustainable difference in the lives of Africans. This is a learning resource center. I work with a charity called ACE Charity. The lady you saw was Zainab. We set up learning resource centers in order to promote teaching and learning outcomes for children. And the way we can do that is by setting up a learning resource center in a local school. In local schools in Nigeria, sometimes the teachers do not turn up, sadly. So we set up a learning resource center that is conducive and promotes learning. Most of you here will agree that primary education is key. Primary education is the foundation you need in order to build cognitive, social, cultural skills for every single child. And the best way to entice children and keep them in school is to give them a conducive learning environment. The reason we set up a learning resource center is because we need to have a computer. Most of the local schools in Nigeria don't use computers because of electricity. We provide a generator for that. Most of the local schools in Nigeria don't look like this, the bottom picture. Most of the classrooms look like that. So being raised in the UK, studying in the UK, and having access to good resources, I couldn't understand how anyone could promote education without a conducive environment. It always boggled me why bigger organizations wouldn't set up learning resource centers or classrooms that look like this. But not only that, we employ somebody to be in the learning resource center. This is really key, because what we do is we then put the children into 3 different categories: high ability, medium, average ability, and low ability, because that way we can teach children who are marginalized. These are children who can't speak, who can't identify letters. But when you give a conducive learning environment, you become the engine room in the local schools. So essentially what that means is the teachers who no longer turn up, or usually do not turn up, when they do turn up, they can plan their lesson notes in our learning resource center. So we take over the ICT periods in the local schools, because they do have a timetable that, yeah, you have 8 subjects, but maybe you do 1 a day, depending on who turns up. But because we have taken over the ICT period, we're there long term. So enrollment increases, retention increases, completion increases. Not only just increases, you leave school being ICT literate. You can use the computer, Word, Excel, practical skills. We are working with a new generation of children, of Nigerians, who will drive economic growth. You can't talk about driving economic growth if you don't focus in primary education. We need to invest heavily in education, not just secondary education, not just university. Hence the reason we have a lot of people in Nigeria unemployed. This is not because there aren't any jobs. There are loads of jobs. Sadly, they're unemployable. It's really key that we invest in education. It's particularly key that we invest in primary education and have systems like this that can be scaled across Nigeria as well as Africa. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Kiki. I think now we'll leave it to the jurors to give their feedback and advice.
Actually, we need to wait. Yes. Can you hear me now?
I can.
Yes. Well, I'm rather than feedback or advice, I'd love to ask you a question, if
Sure.
I may. Is that okay?
Sure.
This is very inspiring. Certainly, I agree with everything that you said, and it was a powerful presentation. My question is whether or not there's resistance, or maybe I shouldn't assume resistance. How do the teachers in the local schools feel about you coming in and putting this resource center that becomes such a powerful? I think you understand the question based on your. Yeah, please.
In the first school, I was thrown out. That's the truth. I was thrown out of the first school because she felt we were making her look bad. She didn't understand it. She literally threw us out. It took us 12 months to start working in the first school. They thought we wanted to take over. Eventually, when they understood what we wanted to do, they embraced it, because she realized that all we want to do is strengthen the system, give them tools that they ordinarily didn't have. Now we have teachers who have been teaching for 20 years, have never been able to use a computer, had a computer, never taught children ICT because they couldn't use it, locked it up somewhere. But when we take over the Learning Resource Center, all of a sudden, they are now able to use the computer. So the intention, which is a multiplier effect, an unintended benefit for the teachers, they become ICT literate just as well as the children are.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Great, wonderful work. Like Wish Wonder, love the fact that you're focusing on the environment in particular and the idea of creating conditions for learning. I think that's very strong. I want to acknowledge your passion as well. It comes through very clearly. It's a really strong part of your pitch.
Thank you.
I wish you were clearer on your impact data. So if I'm thinking about this from an educator or a policy perspective, I'm like, great, well, how much does it cost? How many people can be impacted? What's your impact so far? I really want to know that information because I want to kind of delve down a little bit into the detail. And again, I wonder it's how much you change this idea from going, I'm going to do this for schools to do this with schools. And I think that the preposition determines the relationship always. So that shift, I think, is partially Jordan's question as well, is how can you take these teachers and help them become advocates of that work as well?
So what we have also done is we've created a template, which is a Learning Resource Center manual, which is being used in the schools that we work in. We work in the Northeast, we work in Sokoto, we work in Abuja, we work in areas where children have been affected by Boko Haram insurgency. So generally, it's widely accepted. The only resistance we got in the beginning was because we said we were in charge. So we have the key to the Learning Resource Center. They don't. We are partners, and we become the engine room of the school. And we're also working with the government on this as well. So at some point, we're hoping to scale up. I will. Thank you.
Thank you for a great presentation, and as the other jurors, I think it's a great initiative. I have one suggestion. I feel a little bit uncomfortable with labeling children as low ability, high ability, and average. I think it goes against what we know about how children evolve, how everybody can learn, and you're not born with a certain ability. That's kind of the school's job, and kind of life helps you or hinders your opportunities. So I would just suggest that you look at that and also what effect that might have on a child at that age to be called low ability and grouped with kids who are thus labeled.
Understood. Thank you very much for that.
Okay, so I really love the fact that you're coming from primary education, because that's what people don't really understand in Nigeria, that it's not actually creating more jobs or getting people, it's actually coming down to the roots to get people to understand and educated. So how far do you see yourself going? What's your vision, and where do you see yourself going in the long run?
In Nigeria, we have 774 local governments. We intend to go to each local government, starting with the north. The north is where it's worst hit. So we are working in Borno State, Sokoto State, Abuja, etc. And we've showed them since 2012 that this works. The charity was set up in 2010. The aim is to go around the whole of Nigeria as well as Africa, because like you rightfully said, for some reason, they don't understand that primary education is really key. They focus on secondary education, which we also do with our work on the Malala Fund. But primary education is the crux of the matter. If you can't teach to read and write, what are you doing in secondary school? At least if you can teach to read and write, even if they end up not going to secondary school or they end up not going to university, when they're selling on the market or in the streets or whatever they're doing, they can do simple additions and they can ultimately be better people for themselves and bring in more income for their families. Primary education is key. Primary education, researchers have proven that it's a fundamental right of every single child. And if more women especially had primary education, the world would be better for it.
Thank you so much, KIKI. All right. Our second speaker for today is Dean Makubri. Dean is the founder of My Social Life, South Africa's digital life skills and online safety program for kids. Dean, please join me on stage.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Very nice to have you all here, coming from the southern tip of Africa. My name is Dean Makubri. I am the founder of My Social Life. We are a digital life skills program which is operating in schools in South Africa. Our objective is to develop safer, smarter digital citizens so that they can explore and excel in the fourth industrial revolution. I'm going to get a little bit more into that in a bit. I'm also a father of 3 daughters. They are 6, 11, and 15, and I have suffered for about 3 decades from anxiety, although I'm not too bad at the moment. But actually, after a 12-month course of cognitive therapy, I approached anxiety through a thing called exposure response prevention, which basically means you scare the hell out of your own life until it desensitizes so much that you're able to come out of it. And that's extremely relevant to what I teach. Okay. So I just want to read something that came from the plenary session yesterday from President Armin Sarkisian, because I think he hit the nail on the head with regards to what we do. He said, the next generation should be healthy first, not just physically, but holistically. He said, everyone that's walking in the street has the world in their pocket. These glassy, glossy black rectangles give us so much power, but what will they do with that knowledge? That is the question. Education is the most important part of our life and our humanity. It creates a more secure, prosperous, and sustainable world. And it kind of hit me yesterday that that's so true, that we are wandering around with these devices, and whether we do good or bad with it depends on what the outcome is individually in terms of whether we prosper, but also as a group, as a society. And so where are we right now is that we have a whole lot of teens and preteens on devices. And so they're using phones and games and consoles and MacBook Pros and so on. And I'm just asking the question is, are they well equipped to do that? Because certainly in my country, there is no curriculum. There is no map. The kids are wandering around in the wilds of the internet. And yet they're at this incredibly vulnerable stage of their lives in terms of their neurobiology, in terms of their physiology, and in terms of their hormones. Things are going absolutely crazy. And yet they've got global access. They've got global exposure and global reach, which informs their perspective on life. It informs the influence of the way in which they're going to talk to each other. And finally, we've got very powerful technology platforms which are seeking to buy our children's time and essentially the parents' money with respect to the attention economy. They're actually trying to keep us online for as long as possible, and that's just business. So what do we need to do? Well, the thing that we offer is a digital life skills program. It has 10 different modules, of which I'm showing 8. This is part of the World Economic Forum's Digital Quotient Institute framework. I flew to New York to meet them in April, and these are the individual lessons that we teach. So we go into schools, and we teach grade 4 and 5, then another session 6 and 7, then grade 8 and 9, and then grade 10 and 11. So from the age of 8 to 17. And we teach them at various different levels of tone and exposure about privacy, critical thinking, digital footprints, empathy, security, bullying, screen time management, and digital identity. We also teach them about sexual identity online, which is a really interesting one. And we teach them about mental health and what's the other one? A digital value system. Okay, so what's amazing though about this is on the one side, we also have a brains trust in South Africa of top neuroscientists, privacy advocates, cybersecurity specialists. We have sexologists, and they help inform what we do, because I'm actually a media guy, and now I'm seeking to teach media literacy. I'm not a psychologist. So we have a panel that informs everything that we do every single quarter. And on the other side of what we do here, we actually survey the children anonymously through the schools. So the schools survey the children to see if what I'm saying makes any sense and whether it's any good. So on the ground, I'm so glad you're here, is that we get them to tell us what's wrong with it. What's a bad video? Do we like this presenter? And so on. Because if I don't work, and I'm one of the trainers, and the videos don't work, we change it. This program is permanently evolving, literally every single presentation. So where are we right now is we've been training in schools, and we're at capacity. That's a problem. I can't get to more schools. And now I'm in this terrible situation in which I created this business and didn't realize it was going to go bananas. And I now need to scale. And I don't really know how to scale despite being in business for 20 odd years. I've owned lots of agencies and sold them. But this level of scale is a different type of thing. So we've created a video program, or we're in the process of creating a video program of these different modules. And we're also training parents, that's a separate module, and teachers, that's another module, and mental health professionals and educational psychologists, because we actually train the Red Cross Children's Hospital Africa Child Psychiatry Unit as well. They're saying, we are seeing so many problems from life online, and yet we don't actually understand the source or the context of what's actually happening. Because if you look at cyberbullying and privacy and security and apps and so on, nobody can understand that. It took me 2 years prior to launching to get my handle on it. How are we launching? Well, because I'm originally a media man, I've managed to use my contacts, and in the last 3 months alone, we've had 100 items of publicity worth $500,000 at actual airtime value and print value. So we've been really lucky. That's why we are literally flooded with requests. What I should have done is not do that, actually, and pulled back and done it a bit slower. So we're inundated with the requests, and we're supporting it with digital media, but now we need to rapidly scale, and therein lies my problem. It's a bit of a financial issue, but actually it's more about how do I not make these mistakes. We can go into the numbers if anybody wants to ask those questions, because I don't know how my time is. I just got to put my headphones in.
Like some cards that they can write something and show to them.
Who's first?
I'm first, I think you could probably imagine that I'm super excited. I've spent all of my life working on trying to deal with many of the same issues. So, but my question to you, what I'm unclear from your pitch is, you said these are video modules. How are they distributed to either the parents or the teachers or the young people? I'm not clear about that.
Okay, so it's, the video program, which is in production, is launching in the first quarter of next year, and it's going to be available to schools via an LMS. So essentially, they're going to log in, they're going to purchase a license for the number of students, and then they're going to log in, and then they're going to be able to show the video program with a lesson plan, talking points, and a quiz. So that's kind of how it works. And sorry, that's just for the schools.
Okay.
But actually for the teachers will be the same, that the kind of head of academics will teach the teachers, but for parents they'll log in independently. They'll purchase via e-commerce on their own, and then they will log in independently from home or via a cell phone on a microsite.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Dean. Love the passion. Love a little bit of the story. I also like your ecosystem approach. So the idea, this is not just, working with the young people in schools, it's also bringing in the teachers and the parents. I think that's the way to actually shift things, because everyone can then be across the same language. The idea of making an LMS is fantastic as well. I just want more clarity. If I put my principal hat on, for example, when I was school principal, I don't really know how this works in my learning environment. So that's what I would also be really clear on. Your theory of change, which you started with, I wanted you just to finish that out and close out. This is how we do that. This is what we're going to do. This is our impact data so far.
Okay.
So that will just strengthen your entire pitch moving forward into the conversations that you're having. And of course, when you come to, going across 100 different, platforms, then it's just very clear exactly what the value proposition is to the ecosystem itself.
Yes.
Great work.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you for the great presentation, and I second Louka's comment, because I was going to say, you started talking about your anxiety, and I feel very anxious now, having 2 teenage boys and having heard your presentation, and I don't know where to go. So I guess the question also is, I know as you get more and more demand in South Africa, and given that the medium of language is English, that you may get more demand from other countries, or do you have plans to expand globally? Is that at all in the cards?
At the moment, we're focusing on Africa, so next is going to be Kenya, and then into Mauritius, just because they specifically requested or been interested in it. And I've been talking with the World Economic Forum, who want a greater footprint in Africa with this DQ Institute program. So that is the plan, yes, but I think I'm just very careful. When you're talking about mental health, I want to make sure that we're kind of always on point. It comes to this thing is that this program needs to be relatable, and that's why I've taken time about scaling. So I am ready and willing to go there, but I've got to make sure that the production value out of this video program doesn't lose the energy and the passion and the relatability of all these different apps and so on, but that also when we scale, that we maintain the importance around self-esteem, mental health, performance. Just the children need to go from being safer early into smarter, so they can explore, and then they can take that exploration in their teens into excellence. And if we follow that path, they can go on games as early as they like, as long as that there's somebody explaining to them what the risks are, to make sure that we planted that seed and that they then are able to almost move into exploration, because you can't get that stuff out of your head. And the children, just talking about impact, on average, because they fill in these surveys, are relating that it would change their behavior north of 81%, not had less than 81%. So, and that's a lot of teens who could go to an old man like me. But they're saying, wow, we really didn't know that there was so much to understand, because there's 10 hours of training across so many different aspects, and it kind of makes them go, wow. So I'm just making sure I've got that right, and then into Mauritius and Kenya next.
Okay, so I really love the inclusiveness of the project, like getting feedback and getting people to actually say if they like the speakers and the surveys and everything. So my question is, how do you measure your success? Like, how do you measure your success?
Good question. Yeah. Very good question. We actually measure the success really by the impact, actually by the surveys, by the feedback, where the kids are coming back and saying, listen, because it's all anonymous, they're saying, gosh, that really would change my behavior. These are the things that I'm concerned about. We even say to them, which things popped out into your memory? And they say such and such. Which things are concerning you for the next module? So it's the level of engagement, just pure engagement in the survey. By how many people fill in the survey, go, oh, okay, that made an impact. And then what it says inside the survey answers is it starts to talk to, yes, I really remembered this, and yes, it will change my behavior, and yes, I suffer from anxiety, or I'm self-harming. I have children saying, I'm being abused by my uncle. And it's really difficult. It's anonymous. But a lot of children come and approach me. The children between the ages of 4 to 7, they queue up 40 strong in a line, because that's how many. And that's why I don't believe that there aren't issues around life online. They queue up. But there doesn't need to be issues as long as we behave like informative adults. We bring them close and we realize that there is anxiety in these very adult devices, and that we help them to be able to progress from safer to smarter to excellence. Because those are the ones that are going to stand out when they go into varsity. They're going to be able to say, I've been through a digital citizenship program. You don't need to worry about reputation management with me in the workplace. I'm worth a spot at MIT or Stanford. Like, I really get it. I need to be quiet now, right?
Thank you so much, Dean.
Thanks.
Thank you. Our third speaker for today is Audrey. Audrey, can you please join me on stage? Welcome.
Hi everyone, I'm Audrey, CEO and co-founder at SwitchAbout. So I'm sure we all know someone that is unhappy about his job. These people are part of a very large and growing group of population. Just in France, 90% of the workers 90% of the workers are thinking about changing jobs, but only 30% attempt it. So why don't they just follow their hearts? Either they don't know what they want to do, either they think they don't have enough skills to achieve the transition, or they simply lack confidence. And this is why we created SwitchAbout. We think that we all should do what we love and we all should do what we love, and along the way try different things till we're getting there. So let me tell you about my friend Tom. Tom has been a car mechanic for 10 years. He loves the garage where he's working. His boss is nice, he has fun with his coworkers, and the money is not too bad. But he just wants to do something new. So, SwitchAbout will help him to find his next job by looking at all his skills, hobbies, and what he likes doing daily. So we think that, I'm sorry. People are much more than the content of their CVs, the degrees they have studied, or the schools they have been to. So let's look at Tom's interests. He likes gardening, reading, and cooking. So this tells us a lot about him. He's creative, he enjoys working with his hands, he's organized, and he likes nature. By looking at all his skill set, SwitchAbout provides switchers with different career options. So what about Tom? We'll suggest him to be systems engineer, a game designer, a kitchen chef, or even a lumberjack. Yes, a mechanic can become a game designer, a teacher can be a marketing director, and a pilot or farmer. But such life-changing switches require appropriate training and guidance. So this is why we do a gap assessment between the skills people already have and the one they need to learn to do the job they want. This personalized roadmap is called the Switch Path and will include a list of training the user can follow. The Switch Path will also include the Switch Path will reinforce learning by doing also, by giving people a list of daily activities they can learn to master a new skill. So think about it. Why not volunteer in a charity as a treasurer to learn about managing a budget? So we already learn a lot without knowing it. Just picture a stay-at-home mom. She needs to manage the household, take care of the kids, organize birthday parties, dealing with the plumber. She hasn't learned all of this at school. She didn't get a mom diploma. Don't you think she wouldn't be a perfect wedding planner or a project manager? And we are going even further by putting peer learning at the heart of SwitchAbout. 1 million people we're creating the Switch community and we're going to make it a place where people can learn from each other by sharing their skill and knowledge. If you want to explain what your job is or organize a boot camp on a specific subject, you can decide when, where, how, and how much. So let's go back to my friend Tom. Tom looks at all the career options we gave him, and he thinks, how cool would it be to be a game designer? But he doesn't really know what a game designer does, and he would like to know more about the job. So we'll be able to search the Switch community for a game designer, contact him, even go for a coffee with him, and ask him all the questions he has about the job. In the end, Tom maybe won't become a game designer, because along the way, as he develops new skills, meet new people, and updates his Switch pass, we will keep on suggesting him new job ideas. He will end up being a web developer and will be more fulfilled than ever. Switchabout allows us to be lifelong learners and gives us the opportunity to upskill and reskill ourselves and gives us the opportunity to upskill ourselves to achieve our personal wishes. So to adapt to an ever-changing world and to develop the most thriving talents for tomorrow, we will need more than ever to learn, do switch, relearn, and switch again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aroh. Can I ask the jurors to keep your feedback and question a bit brief? Because we're running out of time.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic presentation. I have to say, at the beginning, I was thinking a lot about that. I was nervous about it because so much of it was based on this idea that everybody has their deep passion that is their job, and I thought, well, what about context? Context has a lot to do with it. The things I wanted to do when I was a kid are not the things I ended up doing, because you discover things along the way. Yeah. But by the end of the pitch, you talked about the way the community covers that. So I sort of I wish that had come a little bit earlier, because it got me very skeptical from the beginning. And I think had you brought that community in earlier, you would have grabbed me more intensely. And I'll stop there in the interest of time.
Okay, thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Audrey. Très intéressant. I would say that, we all know the compelling nature of this idea, that the idea of having to continually learn. Almost the same feedback from the other two. It's the idea, I really want a clear theory of change. This is what we do, this is how we do that, and this is the change that we would like to see. And I think that using that model up front, then I kind of have the detail, the scaffold that I can put some of the other parts onto. The idea of the switch pass is very good. I like the idea of a community as well, and the peer learning component as an idea. Like a learner passport, we're seeing all these different things take place. My question is, and this was implied, like, who is this for? And then it's for adults. And I didn't know that until you kind of... In fact, I'm still making assumptions. So what we do is we target these people specifically. These are our users. And being really clear around that just means you can kind of understand how it might work in practice. But well done, and I wish you really well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. I agree that it's a really exciting and needed kind of initiative. So congrats.
Thank you.
I have a few questions for next presentations that you might give.
Yeah.
One is, it wasn't clear to me, where is the community? I realize you're French, but is this in France, or is this globally, or is this virtual and anybody can do this? Second, I had the question of, depending on what's the community, there are formal certifications that, the switch pass seems to be like how the person's going to demonstrate that they have certain skills for certain jobs, but there are others, right, in the real outside switch bout, and how do you interface with those? And finally, I think just an idea moving forward, you started with kind of the motivation being that many people are unhappy in their jobs, and then you talked about your friend Todd, who was actually pretty happy in his job, so it was kind of a little contradictory. So one of the things I might suggest is one of the potential real benefits and value adds of something like this is that society could benefit from everybody's best talent. And that's something like, there's all this untapped talent that's going because people are stuck in jobs that they're skilled for, but they might have these other skills that are just not developed. And so I think that's really the biggest contribution you could make through something like this.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I really agree with what they said about the clarity of your presentation, because sometimes I'll just, during your presentation, I'll be like, oh, I have a question, but then you now clarify it towards the middle, and I'm like, oh, okay, I've gotten the answer. So my question is, have you has there been any impact so far during your project?
We're just starting. For now, people can create their profile, enter their hobbies, their jobs, etc., and we're giving them career options. And in the next 2 weeks, normally, the complete switch pass will be online, and people will be able to call us to have, precisions on their switch pass and guidance, and we can, tell them which kind of training they're going to do they can do, etc. So we're just starting, and the next step is a switch community, which is a big one.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Audrey. This is a very interesting project. Okay, our fourth speaker today is Daniel OWUSU. Daniel is the founder and knowledge management analyst of Orientation Africa, a social enterprise that aspires to empower African youth with leadership skills. Please help me welcome Daniel to the stage. You have this picture?
My personal mission statement is to transform lives and inspire change in Africa for the greater socio-economic good for families, communities, and the continent at large. Distinguished guests and jury, Africa is the youngest continent, but it's sad to know that more than 3 million youth are traveling in life with unclear purpose and destination. This fundamental results to high exam failing rates, school dropout, mass unemployment, of which a lot are having certificates, but don't have the requisite skill set, not even to create a job. Against this background, because of the old path that our parents were guiding us with it is time for the African youth to unlock and unlearn that path, their own career path. Against this background, I felt a pressing desire to help my colleagues and also over 100,000 African youth across Ghana, Benin, Nigeria, and Ivory Coast with my training programs. And also, I wrote a book called Connecting Personality Types with Careers. So now, being with the youth in this space, I'm now digitizing the process using AI and machine learning to create more interesting features and benefits to help this unclear and confused youth. So as you can see, a lot of people are in this space. So I'll just pause here for you to have a good feel of what the app is about. So this is the home, the home of the UI. So you could see John has been accepted for a mentee. He's able to join a community and opportunity that comes with it. Then here becomes the dashboard of the user. So your bio, which can also be interconnected to recruiters and all. Then you go through personality, all these texts, also to help you get to know your assets, to create a path for you. As you create the path, you now get to align the output that comes out from this, aligns you to get to know the schools that are linked to your interest areas and the jobs, and also get a chance to connect with mentors and coaches. Then you also have a community arena of which you can now interconnect with people based on these interest areas and opportunities that comes with it. So with this, the user is now going to have the user's time, their financial investment, and the return on investment for their parents or guidance are going to maximize with respect to effort and efficient to results. So with this, we'll be able to help a lot of African youth who are confused to be aligned with their career goals whilst fulfilling their earthly desire and purpose. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel.
I find this very interesting. I guess I have one question for you, which is, what's the plan to get people to actually use it?
Okay, so one is to do intensive marketing. So currently I work with 85 schools across Ghana. So that's the avenue I'm going to use to create awareness. Also, I'm a digital media professional, so digital marketing, also to create awareness, also be one key thing, and also engage with the stakeholders to create attraction.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Wonderful. Love the fact that you started with data. What you just said in answering Jordan's question is what you should also say in your pitch. I wanted to know how does this work. You say 85 schools, great. I understand that's a way that you're trying to kind of implement. Because one of the great challenges with this fantastic app is the implementation gap and how actually it will become, once it leaves kind of the design phase, how it actually is used in the communities themselves. A really strong part of this is the idea of developing self-awareness. Young people who know who they are and know what they want to do, both in work and in the world. And I really think that's a strong part of this app. The assessments are always, you have to choose some assessments, I think, and what I'd love to see added to that is the idea of coaches and mentors. But if you do want to develop a specific piece around a framework that you can use, and there's lots of those I can share with you, where might they go to learn more about that? So, for example, if I'm low on emotional intelligence, how could I find out more about that, for example, as opposed to having to go to a formal school or into a job? Great work.
Sorry. I was saying great presentation and great initiative, so thank you for that. I also have a couple questions related to the ones that were done by the previous jurors. I can see the benefits to the youth of enrolling in something like this. I was wondering how you're going to get coaches and mentors to participate and how you're going to ensure that they're actually good coaches and mentors and someone who the young people really will benefit from interacting with.
Okay, so one, there are already entities or agencies of what coaches and mentors around that we're going to plug them in, but we also do more of a filtering and a review of them before we add them to it. So it's not just adding anybody on it, but they'll go through a due diligence process for you to select. And whatever discussions the mentee and coach are having, the back end has the dashboard to see whatever is happening. So if it's even going to the bad, we're able to retract and help. Thank you.
Okay, so nice presentation, and this actually reminded me of what a friend of mine, an idea he gave me, just similar to this, and it was really brilliant. So my question is, how do you ensure that if someone wants to get a job and he gets on your app and he goes through the coaching and mentoring, how do you ensure that he actually gets the job at the end of the day?
Okay, so the other, because of the restriction they gave us on this, so I didn't put other UIs to it. So when you get to this side, so it's going to be integrated to it. So if you watch the bio, the far end has a portal that you can connect to opportunities and job offers. So what the feed we give you within the job space, if you best fit for you, so you can also get access to recruiters and just plug into it and send your CVs to them. You understand?
A lot of people apply for various jobs and they have various requirements. So how do you ensure that the requirements that the job needs are actually what these people have, and at the end of the day they really get the job that they need?
Okay, so it goes by this. So if you go through the assessment and get to know your path, the result you get defines the level of skill set you have to get for A or B set. So let's say if you want to be an engineer, what are the skill sets you need to become an engineer? And what are the skills that needed on the field to become an engineer in the space, let's say data science or whatever. So you have a preview of what to do, and that's the essence of also the coaches and mentors guiding you towards it to achieve that. So before you get the job offers, you know what they need and how they need it. And also the recruiters are going to people we are going to work with other top agencies, plug their APIs with us and able to interconnect with them. So we now send them the data of people who they think are of essence or best fits what they are looking for.
So much, Daniel. It's really interesting. Thanks. Our fifth speaker for today is Victor Sanchez. Victor is the Deputy Executive Secretary for the IBA Media Program. Please help me in welcoming Victor to stage.
Thank you.
Victor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, here's my pointer. Cool. All right, thank you. Ibermedia Digital is a tool that provides access to 300 films, Ibero-American films for Latin American students. From tiny rural schools to universities or public libraries. The films are supported by additional materials, additional handout materials, and specific educational worksheet to help out both teachers and students to stimulate debate in class and provide context as well. So here you have an example, for instance. The rise in the middle class population in Latin America and the decrease in the extreme poverty unfortunately didn't bring the reduction in inequities that we want. And this is really important, in part because of the education in Latin America is excessively conventional, let's say. On the other hand, culture is an ideal tool, a perfect vehicle to help out to build citizenship awareness. But again, the educators sometimes lack of the proper tools to encourage learning situations, especially those driven by skill-based educational approach. So what we want with this platform actually is to help out to develop these skills such as critical thinking, skills such as innovation, skills such as teamwork, skills such as leadership, etc. This is what we want here with Ibermedia Digital is about building up identity. It's fine that we have several different approaches of movies, but what we want is to reflect our own stories, our own characters in our own language as well. And this is a perfect vehicle to do that. Okay. So what we want here is to foster debate, to foster this sort of internal work class, and help out the leaders to help out the both teachers and the students to leader this kind of methodology. So far, who's right behind this? We at Ibermedia, we are a cooperation program supported 100% by public funds. We work with the Ibero-American General Secretariat, and we have been working as well with the Spanish agency cooperation. That's the way we finance this initiative. We have been in a sort of beta testing period for now, but our aim is to scale it up to the next level and to work with education and culture departments in Latin America to make this platform available for every single school, every single educational center, every single public library in each country, with an affordable amount of money. We strongly believe that we will be able to make this initiative sustainable in time and affordable for everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Victor. May I ask the jury to keep the Q&A quite short, too?
Okay, I'll ask it as quickly as possible. I love the whole idea. I like everything you're talking about. My one question is, it's not just enough to have the platform. What do you have planned in terms of professional development to make sure the teachers are using it in the best possible way?
Okay.
Anyway.
Actually, yeah, we have been working with these additional materials that support movies. So the teachers are able to select from a different type of cycles, or they're available for select their own itineraries if they want to talk about or help out a debate, for instance, about human rights. For instance, in class, we have a cycle for that. If we have, if they want to persuade other different tasks, such as, I don't know, equality, for instance, we have a cycle for that. Woman, we have a cycle for that. Childhood, we have a cycle for that. So we also provide these additional materials for the teachers, actually, to help out stimulate this debate and try to stimulate this critical thinking and try to stimulate this problem solving through the culture. Is the approach that we're trying to persuade it.
Fantastic. Muy bien, Victor. Muchas gracias por todo. Sí, unos comentarios. I would say that, again, fantastic platform. The question is, how well used will it be in a school? And so a couple of things I would say is, could you have Ibermedia champions that are educators themselves that are kind of championing this and being distributors within a particular learning community? That's one question. I also love this idea of moving from consumption to creation. So rather than being kind of a passive, and I love the fact that there's identity reflected in this culturally appropriately, and I think that's fantastic as opposed to coming from some other part of the world. But I think in education, when we get kids co-creating with this tool, so they do it, they analyze it, they think critically, and then what do they create as part of it? I think that would be a strong part.
Yeah, actually, it's very interesting because in a second layer of the contents themselves, both teacher and students will be able to create their own cycles. I mean, we provide the films, but they will be able to identify some different connections that maybe we have not identified yet. So they will be able to build on their own cycles, build on their own worksheets as well, and even share with other, why not, other students, other schools as well. So this is more like a 2.0 approach, where they socially interact themselves. We just provide the tools and they build up on top of this.
Thank you for the presentation. I was expecting that table to ask a question I'm going to ask, but they didn't. So I get to ask it. So how do you measure success? How will you know this worked? And what related to that, I think, in the age of Netflix, Amazon Prime, and all these streaming, how do you ensure that this is not going to be outdated as soon as you launch it? And what is kind of your theory of change?
Okay, in regards to the measurement, well, we have obviously analytics. We have the statistics. We have we have this platform hosted by Amazon services. So for us, it's pretty standard kind of tracking or follow up, how many views, how many movies are downloaded, how many worksheets are downloaded, how much time the students or specific educational centers expanding the website, and in the
Just
second.
to follow up on that, I mean, if you want to really change what you started with, which was inequality in learning outcomes, which then perpetuates inequality, are you looking at how this impacts learning, which is ultimately what usage is an input, but we don't really know if that's related to then outcomes.
Yeah, actually, this is definitely a part we will have to work on it. Probably related to the feedback collection from the teachers themselves, if they can explore how our purposes work on their class, and they can provide us feedback about the interest of the students, for instance, or the interaction of the students. That's something that will help us a lot. In regards to the second part of your question, if compared with other platforms, other commercial platforms, because this is not a commercial one, well, this is all about identity. I mean, it's okay if we have amazing contents in Amazon, Netflix, or whatever OTT, but this is all about identity. This is all about building up our own characters, our own stories, our own context. And this is not necessarily present in Amazon or Netflix or other video on demand platforms. So this is the point of Ibermedia Digital, the carefully selection of the films that we are providing to students.
Okay, so mine is not a question. So I think it would be best if you could also get feedback directly from the kids. Like, try to also include the kids in the creation of the relatable characters and the content, to know exactly what they like, what they don't like, and try to get them during the production process. It will really help in longevity. So if you can just get the feedback directly from the kids before and after the creation of your content.
Definitely. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Victor. This was really good. Like, give me 1 minute. Let me. Okay. Our sixth and final speaker for today is Jeremy GIBBON. Jeremy is a co-founder and program director at the Jakes Gerwell Fellowship, an organization that nurtures expert teachers to embrace innovation and lead change. Finally, I would like to ask the jurors for us to keep the Q&A very short. So, one feedback, one question. Okay? All right. Jeremy?
Thank you very much, and thank you to the audience members who have stayed to the bitter end. The jury has to stay, but you're obviously free to go, so thank you. You do know that I've only got 5 minutes, so it's not that much longer. Can I take you back to the year 1994? In my home country of South Africa, it was a year that no one will forget. The ANC was unbanned. Nelson Mandela was elected as the first president. He was famously quoted as saying, education is the most powerful weapon we can use to change the world. There was euphoria in the country, and the story that was going to unfold was one of great hope. There was a firm belief that education was going to be able to eradicate the triple evil of inequality, poverty, and unemployment. Let's zoom 25 years from that date to 2019. And the story of education in my country is one not of joy and hope, but one of despair and dysfunction. Let me give you 4 little pieces of insight into our current education system. Learning outcomes as measured by TIMSS and PIRLS initially increased, but has since plateaued, and sits at the very lowest of all countries brave enough in the OECD to participate in them. The majority of our teachers lack the content knowledge and the pedagogical skills to teach effectively. In the latest TIMSS survey, 79% of our grade 6 maths teachers were not able to achieve 60% on the tests that they were preparing their grade 6 students for. Out of every 100 learners that start in grade 1, 60 of them reach grade 12. 14 of them are eligible to start university, and only 4 of them complete a university degree. And then finally, the Pearls Reading Survey. In 2016, the data showed that in South Africa, grade 4 students, 78% of them were unable to read for meaning in their home language. Now, that's a lot of dire statistics, but let me just pause on that one. 78% of children in my country cannot read for meaning at grade 4. That means that 4 out of 5 of every group of children in South Africa are effectively not able to participate in the formal schooling sector from then on because they haven't developed those fundamental skills. So it's against this backdrop of dysfunctionality in our education system that the Ellen Gray Orbis Foundation Endowment started the Jakes Gerwel Fellowship. It's commonly agreed that no system can exceed the quality of its teachers. And so we believe that any long-term sustainable improvement can only happen through an investment in our teachers. The vision of the Jakes Gerwel Fellowship is to nurture a pipeline of expert teachers, educational leaders, and social entrepreneurs who will address some of the biggest problems in South African schools. And we believe that to achieve this vision, we have to attract the very best young people into teaching. We need to intentionally nurture and equip them and then set them free to tackle these enormous challenges that we have. And so our theory of change and our associated logic model sounds something like this. We advocate for the value of the teaching profession, particularly around social justice, and then we attract the very best school leavers to become teachers. We fund and support them through their education at university. Then they qualify as young teachers with the potential to lead. If we provide a strong, newly qualified teacher program, then our young teachers will flourish in their first few years of teaching. And if we develop specific competencies, then they will become expert teachers, education leaders, and social entrepreneurs. And finally, if we help them to leverage their impact through professional learning communities, then they will be able to solve some of the biggest education challenges in our country. So we've developed a competency framework, 8 competencies that we use to select and programmatically develop the young people. But the 3 key competencies that we focus on are innovation, change leadership, and strategic thinking. We believe that our very best teachers need to be involved in mentoring and coaching our teachers of tomorrow. And our best teachers don't sit in university academic departments, they sit in our schools. And so we intentionally match teachers to our students so that they can be mentored and coached on a regular basis. The Jakes Gerwel Fellowship started in 2018, and since then our cohort has doubled each year. We know that there are no quick fixes, there are no silver bullets. There's no single program that can sustainably change the educational opportunities of 13 million young people in South Africa. But we do know that a well-qualified, highly committed cohort of teachers is the only chance that we have of shifting the needle in any significant kind of way. And we also know that the only way to do this is to be intentional about equipping these brilliant young people with the resources and the community and the opportunities to do so. That's the Jakes Gerwel Fellowship. We find the best, we nurture and equip them to the best of our ability, we ensure that they are taught, mentored and coached by the best teachers, leaders and entrepreneurs, and then we establish professional learning communities to allow them to leverage their impact and make change. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. Just to remind the jurors, 1 question and 1 feedback, please.
Feedback's got shorter and shorter as we went on.
See, you can hear me? No, I'm just going to say, great presentation. And in the interest of time, since I know we're short, I'll pass it on and not ask my question.
Well done, Jeremy. Beautifully structured, very clear theory of change. The data that you included, again, very clear. 160, 14, 4. That's very compelling stuff, and that's important when you're doing the advocacy work, which is at the beginning. As an educator myself in a former life, I would absolutely agree that this is the long-term challenge for all systems globally. So I wish you really well. I love the fact that it's doubling each year, and I hope it continues to do so.
Thank you very much. I just need to pay tribute to my colleague Nick Spall, who pulled that data out that I borrowed. So, but thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the excellent presentation, and you're hitting a very core problem across the world. And so if you succeed, you'll be an example for the rest of the countries. I have so many questions, so my only question is, can you please share your card with me so I can follow up later? Thank you.
With pleasure.
No question. Brilliant presentation. I understood the whole angle, and I really love the angle you're coming from, training the teachers to train other teachers, creating a community, and that's brilliant. That's brilliant. Yeah, that's.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Jeremy. Thank you all. Being an entrepreneur myself, I can really appreciate the amount of work, effort, and energy that goes into presentation and designing pitches. So on that backdrop, I would like to ask everyone to give all our speakers a huge round of applause today. For next steps, I'm going to ask the jurors to just move to this side, spend about a minute to deliberate on who is going to be today's winning speaker, and we're going to get back to all of you very soon with, the grand prize. Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Can I draw your attention for a minute? Because we have a winning speaker for this session. Do you want to do the honors?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, cool. Well, the names are here.
So,
okay.
Do you all hear me? Good.
These are the names in pink.
I just need the next page.
The next page.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. It was a very difficult decision for two reasons. One, because all of the presentations were fantastic, and also because the people in charge were telling us to hurry up. So we didn't get to deliberate as much as we did, and I think there might have been some argument had we had a little bit more time. But that's probably our own fault that we didn't have time because we asked too many questions. But our favorite, I don't know if we should say our favorite, what we thought was was the strongest presentation would go to Jeremy GIBBON, which was super well thought out, gave us a lot of data, but we don't want to take away from any of the other presentations either. In fact, we wish we could have made it a tie. So thank you all very much.
All right. That's it. We're done. There are other sessions that are going to happen with the pitch it, so please feel free to join us again later today. But thank you so much for your attention, and we really appreciate your time, okay?